Hi, and welcome back to the Film Society. I'm Mackenzie.
And I'm Chloe.
And today we're going to be talking about sci-fi films for the second half of our show. First anniversary, what we're currently watching, Whiplash, which was released on October 10th, 2014. It's available on Amazon Prime, and it was directed by Damien Chazelle.
Yeah.
Now, I haven't seen Whiplash, but Chloe has recently, so she's going to take over on the explanation of that.
Whiplash, it follows Miles Teller, who plays Andrew Neiman, who is a jazz drummer at an elite music conservatory. Terrence Fletcher, played by J.K. Simmons, adds Andrew to his top jazz ensemble, and as the movie progresses, Terrence becomes more and more aggressive in his teaching methods, pushing Andrew to his breaking point.
Can I ask some questions about it?
Sure.
What do you mean by more aggressive in his teaching methods? Because I haven't seen it, and I've only seen, like, the comparison between it and La La Land, which... because it's the same...
I haven't heard that at all.
It's the same director, it's music...
I didn't know he directed it. Oh my god, you meant it!
I've only heard comparisons between Whiplash and La La Land, because they were both directed by the same person.
Yes.
And both, like, from what I can understand, are very music heavy. What do you mean by more aggressive methods for teaching? Because I've only ever seen, I haven't seen Whiplash, but I've seen the comparison between Whiplash and La La Land, because they were both directed by the same man. And I know that they're both feature heavily with music, because obviously he's a jazz drummer, and in La La Land there's that whole jazz plot that's going on. So tell me more about the movie.
Well, I don't think the comparison can be made in regards to J.K. Simmons' character with his aggressive teaching methods, because I don't see that in La La Land. But yeah, I would say the main comparison is with the jazz. Yeah. Definitely. And it's the same composer for both movies as well.
Interesting. Registers on a level of aggressive.
Well, I mean, a lot of people, when they read the description, they're like, oh, people say he's aggressive because he's not giving everyone trophies. You know, but he was actually very aggressive. Like, there was a scene where he was like, 3 drummers were trying to compete for the spot of the drummer on the ensemble. And so they were like, keep playing, no, you're wrong. And they just kept switching and switching until someone got it right. And it was a day straight. And there was blood everywhere. His hands were blistered. Like, it was insane.
About, like, the fact that there were a couple scenes that were bloody. And I was like, oh, maybe this isn't a movie I want to watch.
But to get the spot, you have to, it's very competitive. It's an elite, like, group to be a part of. So, like, when they perform, like, all the recruiters are there for, like, the top, like, groups and ensembles throughout the entire country.
Oh, okay.
So, like, if you make it and you do well, like, you are set. So he was like, no, like, I need to get this right. And I'm going to stay throughout his intense aggressive methods. And the ending, I don't want to spoil it. He was so mean, J.K. Simmons. And I was like, oh my gosh. But
so for me, for currently watching this week, I finally got around to watching The Current War, which is on Showtime. It came out in October of 2019 after being shelved for 2 years due to the Weinstein scandal. So it premiered in 2017, and it was supposed to be massively released. The whole Weinstein scandal went down. They shelved it for 2 years, and it came out in 2019. And it was directed by Alfonso Gomez Rejon. And that one was definitely a pay full attention, because I was trying to write stuff down in preparation for the podcast today, and I had to rewind parts of it because it happened so quickly. So that movie stars Benedict Cumberbatch as Thomas Edison and Michael Shannon as George Westinghouse, who are battling for who's going to have lights first.
interesting.
Yeah, so it's set in the industrial age, and they're fighting to see whose electrical system will help power cities. Edison is using direct current, which means it can only travel about a mile, and they have to, like, bury all this cable under the cities. So to do it, it, like, takes up a ton of cable boxes and a ton of wiring, and Westinghouse is using AC current, alternating current, which means he can make it travel a lot farther. And Westinghouse ends up getting Tesla on his side, played by Nicholas Hoult. And there's all these characters with, like, names that you just recognize from being in class, like J.P. Morgan is in it for half the movie. and they end up at the World Fair competing for the World Fair to see whose energy source will be used and prove like, oh, this is the better energy source. This is how the world should be working. It was very interesting, especially because I'm not super into like technology movies. I'm not smart enough to get them. I don't get it usually because I don't know anything about alternating currents, and so if the movie starts talking to me about that and they assume I know what's going on, I lose interest really quickly.
Yeah, that's understandable.
But I did really enjoy the movie. There was 2 really great confrontations in it. One was between Edison and his assistant, a man called Samuel Insull, who's played by Tom Holland. It's this moment where everything is going wrong for Edison, and his assistant, who's been very like dutiful and he doesn't talk out of turn, is like, you have to fix this now or you will not be able to do anything. And it was a great moment of like flipping it on its head, where now the person with less power is in charge in a way.
Oh, I can see that, yeah.
And then there's a great confrontation between Edison and Westinghouse at the World's Fair, where it's very cordial, but you can tell how cold it is, where neither of them likes each other because of all of this fighting, but they also respect each other as humans and as inventors. But I looked it up afterwards because I was looking up some trivia for the movie. They never met in real life, so that they took that scene, they just made it up, which obviously they do in movies. At the end of the movie, they give you some facts about all of the characters, or all the real life people, and I felt really bad for laughing at one of the facts, which was, Westinghouse and Edison had this rivalry. They were never friends. They didn't like each other at all. They fought their whole lives over who had the better stuff. And in 1911, the American Institute of Electrical Engineers awarded George Westinghouse its highest honor. You want to know what it's called?
Go for it.
The Edison Medal. I actually giggled out loud watching that. I was like, oh no. I'd be so frustrated if I had spent my whole life trying to beat this person. My highest award I ever got was his name.
Exactly, yeah.
But the movie was great. There was a couple things I didn't like. One was there was this odd subplot, sort of, I think it was meant to prove how smart Westinghouse is, because he gets confronted by a Confederate soldier in the rain, and he's like talking his way out of being shot, but they never like fully showed the scene. They would give you like the first half of the flashback, and then the second half, and then the third part, and then another part, so it felt very disjointed from the whole movie, and like it just didn't fit in with everything else that was going on while they were battling this out. It would just take you from all the action for a hot second to go watch him talk to some guy about how his gun was made, and you're like, what? So there was that. And I mean, none of the characters were super likable, but they were also real people who weren't super likable. I mean, talk to any person who works in engineering and they'll talk about how Tesla was a god and Edison was the devil and vice versa. But that's just like how real people are. So that was The Current War, which is available on Showtime, and it was really good. I enjoyed it.
I'll have to go watch it myself.
Yeah,
I had not even heard of it till you mentioned it, in all honesty.
I think in 2017, I wouldn't have watched it. Like, it wouldn't have been something I was even remotely interested in, because I wasn't mature enough at that age to, like, be like, oh, I want to watch a movie about real people. Like, I was still in the, like, oh, I want action and comedy. Like, I've matured since then, at least a little bit. But then it got shelved for so long. And then, like, the release was really small in 2019, it looks like. So there was no buzz about it. Because that was when they were doing interviews for Infinity War. Tom Holland was talking about how he was doing another film and he needed to keep his hair long for it. This is that film. So that was the only advertising they were doing, was him talking about it in one interview for Infinity War. Like, I don't remember seeing anything for it. The movie was really good. I'm obviously leaving out a lot of details that affect the whole movie very much because I don't want to ruin the whole thing for everyone. But highly recommend. It's on Showtime. Now, we're going to move into our genre of the week, which is sci-fi. And before we start, obviously we have to mention Star Wars. We can't talk about sci-fi without at least mentioning Star Wars. Sadly, both of us are extremely uneducated on Star Wars. I think you've said you've seen 2 of them.
I have, but it's been a while, and I saw one of the originals and one of the ones that started being filmed recently. So they're not in order. I saw one of each. So yeah, I'm very uneducated on those.
I've seen maybe one. I think I saw 20 minutes of one with my cousin. So we are aware that Star Wars is the forefront of sci-fi, and we couldn't go a whole sci-fi episode without mentioning it, but it would be unfair of us to try and judge Star Wars off of what little we've seen.
Yeah.
Unless you count watching Spaceballs, the Star Wars parody, as having seen Star Wars films.
Well, I mean, Marvel films are technically sci-fi as well,
Yes.
but we've also mentioned that as well. That we kind of have a little distinct superhero.
Those are their own category.
Yeah.
But the Star Wars films are available on Disney Plus. Highly recommend. Everyone seems to like them a lot.
I still want to go back and watch them on myself, but it's so hard to motivate myself. I'm like, oh, they're on Disney Plus. I can watch them anytime.
Yeah.
You know?
I feel that.
So I do need to actually go and do that myself.
Yeah, I feel like...
Because I want to rewatch the ones I've even seen so I can understand where they are in the overarching story.
Yes. But I'm going to throw it over to Chloe for the beginning of our sci-fi, because she's got some movies she's going to talk about first.
Well, I have a lot. Sci-fi is personally my favorite, but I will go in depth about Interstellar, but I just wanted to list some of the ones that I personally like and are my favorite sci-fi movies first. So one of my favorite movies is Interstellar, which I'll go into later. And another one of my favorites is Arrival, directed by Denis Villeneuve, and was released in November of 2016. And Mackenzie and I both like this movie. It's Selfless, directed by Tarsem Singh, released in July of 2015. And The Edge of Tomorrow, which was directed by Doug Liman, released in June of 2014. Oblivion, which was directed by Joseph Kosinski, released in April of 2013. Passengers, directed by Mortem Tildum, released in December of 2016. And Snowpiercer, directed by Bong Joon-ho, released in July of 2014. Annihilation, which was directed by Alex Garland, released in February of 2018. Inception, which was directed by Christopher Nolan, released in July of 2010. Life, which Mackenzie and I both enjoy as well.
I don't know if enjoy is the right word. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I feel gross every time I have to watch it, and
have to.
It was a little bit of a have to, and I always, like you say as well, I feel like I need to take a shower after that movie.
Yes, that was a shower movie. Anyway, we won't go too far into that one because it's, but
it's in depth.
Yeah, and the last one for movies I was going to mention was Ad Astra, which was directed by James Gray and released September of 2019. And most of these are for rent or buy on Amazon, except for Selfless, I believe, is still on Netflix, and Snowpiercer's on Netflix as well. And I also just finished watching season 2 of The Boys, which is also sci-fi, and was created by Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, Eric Kripke, and Garth Ennis.
Really? Sorry, Eric Kripke is the guy who created Supernatural.
Really?
That's so odd. Anyway.
I think you would enjoy the show a lot, personally.
It's one of those ones that, if we're being honest, is going to live on my list for a while until I finally get to it, because I know it's not going anywhere.
Yeah, I completely understand that.
So, for me, I definitely did more TV shows than movies, because I find sci-fi TV shows a lot more interesting in a lot of ways. So the first one I have is The Twilight Zone, which was created by Rod Serling, which aired in October of 1959, and it just came back again with Jordan Peele as the host and in 2019. The next one I had is Black Mirror, which was created by Charlie Brooker, and it aired in December of 2011. Stranger Things, which was created by Matt and Ross Duffer and aired in July of 2016, and Doctor Who, which was created by Sidney Newman, which aired originally in November of 1963, ran for 26 years till 1989, and then just came back in 2005 and has been running ever since. Now, I can tell Chloe's itching, foaming at the mouth to talk about Interstellar. So I will let her do that first.
So I just have a short summary about Interstellar, but first, before I go into that, I'll talk about who stars in it. And Matthew McConaughey plays Cooper, Anne Hathaway plays Amelia Brand, Jessica Chastain plays Murph, Michael Caine plays Dr. John Brand. And just a really, really brief summary is, in Earth's future, food has run short and dust is completely present in the air. The planet is becoming inhospitable, which leads NASA to send researchers to another galaxy through a newly discovered wormhole in hopes of finding a new planet to call home.
Sounds interesting.
Oh, and I have a good quote that kind of sums up what it was, like the whole concept of Earth not being hospitable anymore and the fact that they have to leave, which was saying that mankind was born on Earth, it was never meant to die here, which is kind of a present theme, is that like knowing they're going to a different planet is like finding a new home and they can't stay anymore.
Yeah, I know this annoys you, but I haven't seen the whole movie.
I'm aware.
I only saw the last... What did we realize? 10 minutes of it?
Well, I was rewatching it, and Mackenzie told me that she saw the scene where Matthew McConaughey wakes up in a bed, which, for those of you who have seen it, it's like the end scene. Like, I think there's maybe 15 minutes, to be generous, of what's left.
Yeah. So I arrived at the last 15 minutes and snuck in, so I got the credit for my class. And it's one of those that I keep meaning to watch because I was like, very confused, obviously, about the last 15 minutes of it because I feel like it made more sense in context, but...
Oh, and just for a greater context as well, it's almost a 3-hour movie.
I got 15 minutes. That's what, 15% of the movie?
Sure, you do math, not me.
I don't do math. I'm a comm major. No, but it's one of those movies you go back to often. It's one you cite as being one of your favorites.
Yeah, it's probably my favorite.
Why?
Why? Well, I personally, you know this, I love the score as well, which was done by Hans Zimmer. I think it's great. I listen to it all the time when I study. But I just like the present themes. Like, a lot of people refer to it as a very cold Christopher Nolan movie, which he's often criticized for being cold in his films. But I don't think that's true whatsoever for this movie. Because I'm not sure if it was reflected in your last 15 minutes of the movie very well.
I mean, I think it was cold then, but also hospitals and hospital scenes are just naturally cold because hospitals are not open and welcoming places.
But anyway, I would say it's not, because the whole purpose of the movie is that, again, not giving too much away for those who haven't seen it, it centers around Matthew McConaughey's character and his daughter Murph, and it's the whole bond they have through the movie. And again, with the time travel element, without giving too much away, he misses a lot of her life at the end.
Oh, yeah, because I've seen some of it because I saw the scene in the beginning where the books start falling and they think it's a ghost, or they joke that it's a ghost.
Yes.
I've seen that part, and then I've seen the end. And Murph is Anne Hathaway, so she's obviously like an adult. She's grown up.
Jessica Chastain plays Murph.
My bad.
Well, as an adult, Mackenzie Foy plays her as a child.
I thought you were saying me.
Oh, I'm so sorry. You're like, what? I didn't know I was in that movie.
I was in a movie?
That'd be pretty cool, though.
My brain, it'd be pretty cool if I remembered. If I straight up was just blissfully unaware of the fact that I was in this movie, that's a little weird.
But the whole, like, premise is that there's this one scene where Anne Hathaway, as her character, Dr. Amelia Brand, talks about, there's this one scene where we're figuring out which planet to go to next to figure out, which one could be considered a home. And Matthew McConaughey's character, Cooper, was like, no, we're not going to this one because you're in love with the guy that's there, so that's not, you have a bias there. You're not being open to the scientific research for all the planets. You want to go for him. And she has a stance where, no, I'm right because love is the only thing that separates us from anything else. So that connection is why we should go, which I thought was super interesting. And it's a present theme, is that like love is another element almost. And there's a quote that she says in that scene, which I thought was very interesting and kind of, I mean, they don't end up going there first, but it makes her case more persuasive. And it's that love is the one thing we're capable of perceiving that transcends dimensions of time and space. And that's present in that scene and his relationship with his daughter as well.
I like it.
Which is why I'm like, I don't see that movie as cold whatsoever. Yeah. But I guess, space. It's cold.
Space can be cold.
I mean, I've never been, but I assume it's cold.
Isn't that why they wear the big spacesuits? Because it's cold and they got to keep themselves... Maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. I kind of want to talk about Selfless really quick because I still to this day in my mind confuse it with Face Off.
Oh, because it has the backslash in the title.
Yeah, which is the John Travolta and Nicolas Cage film where they switch faces. Oh my God, it's incredible. It's one of those movies that you just have to watch because there's no way I can do it justice explaining it to you.
That makes sense.
It's so
just talking
much
about them
fun.
Switching faces. I'd actually have to see that.
It's this crazy sci-fi thing where... Okay, so it stars Nicolas Cage as a terrorist.
Oh, okay.
Obviously. On the run from justice. So, like, he's out there. He's trying to wreak havoc. And an FBI agent, John Travolta, has to track him down.
And then, oh my God, your face is my face.
No, so John Travolta's character of Sean Archer undergoes a surgery to remove his face and replace it with Troy's face, Nicolas Cage's face.
Mm-hmm. Just cause.
For funsies, as one does. Right. No, he's trying to get information from Castor Troy, Nicolas Cage's character's brother, about a bomb. But for some reason, instead of just giving John Travolta Nicolas Cage's face, they give Nicolas Cage John Travolta's face as well. So Nicolas Cage's character of the terrorist, Castor Troy, wakes up from this coma as an FBI agent and just runs with it. Mm-hmm. And fully is now just wreaking havoc with John Travolta's face. He's like, at one point he goes to John Travolta's house and like harasses his wife. Is like, there's no way I can do this movie justice. It's available on Tubi, which is it's on Hulu. We can watch it if you want.
All right.
It's also available on Amazon Prime if anyone else wants to watch it. Highly recommend. It's about as insane as those movies can get.
Yeah.
It was released in 1997, so I'm not surprised.
Oh, wow. I don't know. I didn't think it was that old.
Yeah.
Like when you were describing it, I don't know why I thought it was more recent.
Nope.
Okay.
1997, back when they were young and could run around.
Oh my gosh.
John Travolta can't do a lot of running now.
I think the last thing I saw him in was the O.J. Simpson limited series.
Oh,
do you remember that? Yeah.
That was good.
Mm-hmm.
What I saw of it. I didn't finish it, but
I watched the whole thing, but again, I watched it when it was released, so.
Yeah. But for me, the sci-fi stuff I want to talk about is, first off, I want to talk about Black Mirror, because we've both seen that.
Black Mirror. We have a little bit of a differing opinion on that, which we're going to fight about right now, is I hate the first episode so much. I almost gave up on the show because of the first episode. That's a common opinion, though, I feel like. A lot of people are like, no.
So for anyone who doesn't know, the first episode of Black Mirror is called The National Anthem, and it was released in December 4th of 2011. The entire show is available on Netflix. It's a British TV show, and I'm going to try to censor this as much as possible. The first episode sees the Princess of England kidnapped. She's a much-loved member of the royal family, and it forces the prime minister to make a difficult choice of giving into the ransom or being known as the person who let this beloved princess die. And what they're asking him to do in return for the princess is, I don't know how to say this nicely, engage in
relations intimate relations with a pig, which is really gross. Yeah.
And I remember watching that episode and being like, oh, maybe this movie isn't for me.
Yeah.
Like I just sort of wanted to tap out the whole episode. I had recorded it for a flight. Like back when Netflix, you could like download Netflix. You still can, but I don't have Netflix on my phone anymore. So I downloaded it for a flight, and I was sitting next to my mom, and I kept having to turn to face the window because I was like, I really don't want her to see what I'm watching. I'm embarrassed.
I had the same problem. I watched the episode, the last season. I believe it's 5.
There's 5 seasons currently.
Okay, well, I watched Striking Vipers on the way back from a plane.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, you know what? This isn't the best with.
Maybe no one needs
and I was
to
in a
see
middle
this.
seat,
Yeah.
casually.
Yeah, the show was started in 2011. It was a British TV show, so they had big names, but they were all British names. And since then, it's gotten really popular. I mean, the last season
had Miley Cyrus, too.
Miley Cyrus. Anthony Mackie was in it. They were starting to get bigger names. And a lot of people who have been in it already have jumped off into bigger things.
That is true.
Like, the second episode in season 1 is, I never know how to pronounce his name, Daniel.
I know who you mean, but I can't either, but I know who you mean.
And I don't want to mispronounce it.
Yeah.
But he went on to do Get Out. Yeah. And there have been a lot of others like that who have, from this, jumped off into other things and gotten much bigger. And I'm amazed at how well it's doing.
Because after the first episode, I think we were all like, I don't know how it's going to do.
Yeah, I was nervous about the second episode being so similar to the first episode.
Yeah.
Because if that had been the case, I would have tapped out. I would have been like, oh, show isn't for me.
Mm-hmm.
There's too much of that. I'm not a huge fan. I'm not a fan at all of bestiality. So
yeah,
if that was going to be like a recurring theme,
yeah, exactly,
I don't think I could have done it.
Mm-hmm.
And like I get the idea I think that youth have of, wow, they went big right at the beginning to prove that they weren't afraid of it. And
I personally like that they did that. I think because they could have put any episode as the first one, and doing that was just very bold and risky in my opinion, and I think it paid off well for them.
I can agree with that, but also it made me feel really gross, and I didn't that.
I was not sitting there like just eating popcorn, having a great time. But
I didn't think you were.
No, I was like, I'm going to look on my phone now because I don't want to watch that. But I just think doing something that obscure it benefited them.
Yes. So I obviously have a lot of TV shows written on my sci-fi categories because I really like those. So I think around middle school I discovered Doctor Who, and I was obsessed, like actually completely obsessed with the show. I fell in love with it. So the premise of Doctor Who, if you'll indulge me for a moment, is there's a alien called the Doctor. You never actually know his real name. It's like the big secret throughout the whole show, who travels around through time and space, like fighting off monsters and stuff. We watched an episode of it for Time Travel Fiction.
I watched 2 actually. I could describe them, but I don't know if
one of them is Blink, and that's where they had the angels.
The statues.
Yeah, they're called Weeping Angels in the show, and those things used to terrify me. Like,
I really enjoyed that episode.
Scared.
Yeah, I didn't enjoy the second one we watched, but I liked.
What was the second one? If you could describe it, I'll know what it is.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember because I could tell you more about Blink because you always remember the things you like better. But the second one was something I remember. It was like a museum, and there were different art pieces, and they were going into it, and there were multiple
Day of the Doctor.
Yes. I mean, I like how I said yes. Like, I'm like, yeah, that's the name of it. I didn't know the name of it.
So I think the reason that a lot of people didn't like that one, because I know you weren't the only one in our class that mentioned that to me, of like not really liking the Day of the Doctor, is because it's the same idea as Avengers Endgame. So like
missing a few chapters there.
Yeah, you came in at the end of this story because
I appreciated it, but I knew there were gaps for me of stuff that I would have been like, oh, that was interesting, but I didn't have background knowledge to know if that makes sense.
It was a callback to some of the monsters that they had dealt with previously. A lot of the issues were well explained throughout, like as an overarching thing, that you started learning more about them. And then at the end, this was like we don't have to explain. The people that are going to watch this episode are fans of our show, because the show came back in 2005. This episode was in 2013. So it was 8 years of information that was culminating right then.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of you came in at the end of the story, not you specifically, but if you're watching just that episode, it was to mark like a 50-year anniversary.
Yeah.
So they were calling back to older stuff. It wasn't supposed to be like a regular episode, because a lot of the regular episodes are, okay, here's the problem, here's what we need to do, here's the solution, the episode's over, with the overarching theme of learning more about who the Doctor is as a person and stuff. He's also an alien who has 2 hearts. That's like the big thing for him.
Oh, he has 2 hearts.
He has 2 hearts.
How cute.
But they've gotten some big names to do that too.
Yeah, because I know one of them was the villain in Jessica Jones too.
Yeah,
I don't
David
know
Tennant.
his name. Yes.
He's in it. Matt Smith is in it, who's gone to do other things.
Mm-hmm.
He dated Lily James forever, who I think is now dating Chris Evans, and like, good for you,
I saw
girl.
that was like debunked though, like she was with somebody else already. Oh, I mean, I don't keep up with celebrity drama, but I saw like one thing on Twitter, and I was like, oh, okay.
I just love her because she was young Donna in Mamma Mia 2. And I love those movies.
Oh.
When we do our musical episode, it's just going to be me talking for an hour.
That's so funny because I know her from the small role she had in Downton Abbey.
Oh, true.
And that was probably when I was in middle school, early high school. Her character got introduced. She was like the niece of one of the lords.
Oh, yeah. She's also in something else, which actually is sci-fi, so I'm allowed to talk about it. She was in Pride, Prejudice, and Zombies.
Oh my gosh, I forgot about that.
Ass. It was amazing. I know you like sci-fi movies. Is there another one you think we should be watching? Is there another one you would highly recommend?
Well, I mean, the ones I listed I think are all great. I think, actually, I would probably say Arrival. I did talk about that a little bit in the last episode because the reason I like it is like complete spoiler. So I don't want to go too much into it, but it has Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner, and they're both trying to figure out why these aliens arrive on Earth, which Arrival. So
why they have arrived.
And it's just them trying to figure out the language and their motives for being there to communicate with them.
Interesting.
Mm.
Why is it one that you like? I mean, obviously you can't talk about the spoiler, but like, is there other parts of it that you enjoy, or is it completely just the spoiler of the movie?
Primarily the spoiler of the movie, but I mean, I know a little bit of Spanish, but other than that, I'm not fluent in a lot of languages, and just the concept of language that is so present, I just hadn't thought of that before. Because one of the theories, I couldn't tell you the name of the theory, but it's the theory that you dream or think in the language that you speak. And I didn't think about that, and I just think it's interesting. And again, I don't want to go too much into that for Amy Adams' character, as she's trying to figure out the alien's language.
Oh, yeah, that's the idea. I've heard it a bunch of times where people are saying, oh, I finally knew I understood the language when I didn't have to translate in my head.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you just think in, like...
It's like a switch.
Yeah, like, I knew when I was learning Italian, I'm sure you had the same. I would read it in Italian, and in my head, I'd have to sit there and I'd have to translate it back into English, and vice versa. When I would speak it, I'd have to think it in English, translate it in my head, and then say it. So I've talked to people who fluently speak another language, and they say, yeah, there was a point in time where the switch went, and I didn't have to translate it in my head. I could just think it in Spanish and speak it.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think this is a spoiler by saying that, but eventually that switch gets switched on, I guess.
So we're going to wrap up pretty soon. I want to talk about one more movie/TV show before we leave, which is Snowpiercer. Because we've both seen the movie and we really enjoy it.
Yes.
We both want to watch the TV show. And I just, after doing some research for this, apparently it's on Hulu, or TNT. So maybe we'll start that.
What used to... Oh, my bad. I thought you were talking about the movie still, because they're the same title.
No, the movie's on Netflix, but the TV show is apparently available on Hulu, which we have. So maybe that'll be something we start.
Yeah.
But I know you really like the movie. If you could give a little rundown of the movie.
I mean, usually there's overlap, but I like dystopian movies too. Like, I think all the ones I've talked about also fit under that category. And Snowpiercer is definitely one of them. Like, one of the reasons for the movie and the context behind it is that climate change became fatal and the world is too cold. So climate change is the reason that humanity is on this one bullet train, and that's it, because it's too cold to be outside. And it kind of talks about class structure, like the end of the train is like the lowest class, and then the top of the train is like the top of the top rich. And it's just them trying to get to the top of the train because they're living in these god-awful conditions. And if you see... I don't know, okay? But they're living in these terrible conditions, and I mean, they go into this one scene where they talks about the food they were given, which is just awful. Mm-hmm. And I just think it's super interesting how humanity is still somehow, or lack of, is present in the movie. Like, they're living like animals in the back, and they're still partying, getting the best of all the food, which is really hard to get considering humanity's only on a train and cannot go outside without being frozen to death.
Yeah. I remember reading reviews for the TV show, and they said they took that whole thing and they made it like a murder mystery, and I was like, yep, sign me up. That sounds awesome. Mm-hmm. The ending of Snowpiercer, the movie, without giving anything away, shook me. Just Chris Evans' characters delivering those lines, I was so upset.
I just think it shows how horrible the conditions were when he breaks down in the one scene. I was like, oh my God.
No, it doesn't.
Like, I don't know how I would have lived with myself with the things he had to do.
It does a great job of illustrating that class structure that I feel like a lot of movies try to do, and sometimes you can fall flat if you don't execute it really well.
Yeah, but I think the visual aspect of them literally going from the back to the front
Yeah.
also helps. I don't know, because I
Show
know
it, yeah.
because I think a visual helps. Like, yeah, they're not physically like in some sort of structure where they're going up and up and up or falling.
But you see it moving forward and you can see the visible change.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those movies that I recommend to people if they're looking for a good dystopian. But we're going to wrap up now. Next week, we were going to do crime, but it feels wrong to not talk about horror or Halloween movies as we prepare for Halloween. So next week is going to be Halloween and horror movies. Please feel free to tell us your favorites and things you think we should watch. You can DM us. You can comment on our YouTube videos, or you can just text us because most of you listening know us. Feel free to shoot us a text about which movies you think we should be watching. Don't forget, since it's a pandemic still, you shouldn't be going to parties. Let's face it, our teams aren't letting fans, so grab some popcorn, relax in your room, watch a movie. That's what we're going to be doing. Right, Chloe?
Right, Mackenzie.
Come back next week where we're going to be talking about Halloween movies and especially horror movies. I'm going to make Chloe watch some because apparently she's never seen a single Halloween movie.
That is a lie.
What?
Twitches.
You couldn't come up with the name for Halloween Town, but you could come up with it's about Halloween and a town. You are in no place to argue with me.
Hey, well, I got to do my homework for the next one. So
Clearly.
we're going to have a lot to talk about.
Oh, yeah. Thanks for listening, guys.
Bye.
Bye.